right? And today we are going to discuss the theory of consumer behavior. I call this the part one of consumer behavior because we are going to strictly discuss the foundation, right? And I shared it into different parts: part one, part two, part three. I think there are up to 4 parts, but we're talking of part one so that you'll be able to understand the foundation of consumer behavior properly. And when we move to part two, you understand when we talk about consumer behavior, which is utility in bracket, right? So my name is Eustace Chigode Oswago, a development-focused economist. And now we are going to begin, right? I want you to think about this carefully. If you're watching me, I want you to think about this carefully. Imagine you have 1,500 with you right now, and you are very hungry. And at the same time, you also need data, and you have something else you would like to buy. Now ask yourself, can you buy everything with the 1,005 that you have? The answer is no. So what will you do? What will you do? I want to believe that each and every one of us, we are going to think, we're going to compare, and most importantly, we're going to choose between the food because you're hungry, between the data that you needed and something else that you would like to buy. You're going to choose. Now, that process of choosing how to spend your money is what we call consumer behavior. Okay, so today we're going to understand it step by step in a very simple way. Now, what is consumer behavior? What do you understand, or what is the meaning of consumer behavior? Consumer behavior refers to how consumers make decisions, right? How consumers make decisions about what to buy, how much to buy, and when to buy. What to buy, how much to buy, and when to buy. So, in a simple term, consumer behavior is about how you decide to spend your money. So, every day you are making choices. You choose between food or data, transport or snacks, saving or spending your money. Because money is limited, you cannot buy everything. So you must decide what is more important. Right? And that decision process is consumer behavior. Now, we can say consumer behavior is also called utility. Right? We're going to understand the concept of utility. Now, in economics, utility means satisfaction. So when you hear about utility, utility is talking about satisfaction. How satisfied are you with a product? So I can consume a plate of rice or 2 plates of rice, and I'll tell you, I derive utility in the consumption of rice. So utility means what? Satisfaction. Now, it is the satisfaction or benefit you get from consuming a good or services. That is utility. So to make this simple, imagine when you eat food or feel satisfied, that is utility. When you buy data and enjoy browsing, that is utility. When you wear something nice and feel comfortable or feel confidence, that is utility. So remember this, Consumer buy goods and services because of the satisfaction they will get. So we can say utility is the satisfaction derived from the consumption of goods or services. And utility has two types, two major types, of utility, which we call the total utility and the marginal utility. These are the major types of utility. And as time goes on, we are still going to discuss the average utility, which is supposed to be the third, but the average is gotten from the total utility. And that is why I said the two major types are the total utility and the marginal utility. So to explain them very clearly, I want us to imagine, because utility, the concept of utility that deals with satisfaction, the best way I can explain this is using imagination, right? So you watching me, I just want you to relax and imagine you are very hungry and you start eating rice. Like you are very hungry and you are eating rice, a plate of rice. Now, the first plate you ate, you feel very satisfied. Now, you ate the second plate, right? You are satisfied, but not as much as the first. Now, remember that when you eat something and you are very satisfied, it means you are filled up, right? Now you are eating the second plate. By the time you eat the second plate of the same rice, you will be satisfied, but not as the first, because you feel like you are being forced to eat it, or somehow uncomfortable because you are filled, right? Now you now eat the third plate. That's at that level you are okay, but the enjoyment is reducing because you are no longer enjoying the food. You're already very satisfied at the first plate. And at the second plate, you are satisfied because you are just eating for eating's sake. Now, for the third plate, I would say you're okay because you are no longer enjoying the food as at the first time. The same thing goes with water. When you are very, very thirsty, right? Maybe you walk on the farm or you trekked a long distance and you're very, very thirsty. You branch at a shop and maybe buy sachet water. You take one sachet water because of that tastiness. You notice that, wow, you at that first consumption of water, you enjoyed it very well. It entered through all your bloodstream and bone marrow and everything. But by the time you say, this one water I took, I need more, you take the second water, sachet water, you agree with me that at the second water, you are not as satisfied as the first water, right? And when you take the third water, you are not as satisfied as the second or the first water. So utility is more of from high satisfaction down to low or negative satisfaction, right? So you take the when you take the third plate of rice, you are okay, but the enjoyment is reducing. And if you go further to take the fourth plate, you realize that you may even feel uncomfortable. And that is why sometimes you see some people, when they eat a lot, they feel uncomfortable and they feel like vomiting. Permit me to say that word. You feel like throwing up, right? Because you are oversatisfied. Now it's making you very uncomfortable. And that is when we say you have derived utility. But the total utility, being one of the type of utility, is the total satisfaction you get from all the plate you have eaten. So if you eat plate 1, 2, 3, or 4 plates, all the satisfaction added together is what we call total utility. So when you add 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate, 4 plate, and you are asked, how many plate of rice did you eat? You say, I ate 4 plate of rice. Now that 4 plate of rice is called the total utility of your satisfaction. The total utility of what you have consumed. The same way when you take water, you take 1 sachet water 2 sachets water, 3 sachets water, 4, 5 sachets water, the total utility you have consumed is the consumption of 5 sachet water. Right? So now, what is the marginal utility? The marginal utility is the additional satisfaction you get from consuming 1 more unit. Additional, that is marginal. Marginal means additional. Utility means satisfaction. So additional satisfaction you get from consuming more unit or 1 more unit of good or services. So the satisfaction from the first plate of rice, the satisfaction from the second plate of rice, the satisfaction from the third plate of rice, each one is marginal utility. But I want you to also notice something very important. The extra satisfaction keep reducing. Remember I said from the high satisfaction down to the low or negative satisfaction. So if I eat 1 plate of rice and I eat 2 plates of rice, that 2 plates of rice I ate is an additional satisfaction. I took another 3 plates of rice, is 1 more unit, additional satisfaction. And every satisfaction, every one I add, or every plate of rice or sachet of water I add, it is called a marginal utility because it is an additional utility. You get the point, right? So this is very important, or a very important idea we will fully explain in our next class, right? In our next class, that which is the part 2 of consumer behavior. So you have to follow us on Dpenomics Academy so that you can get the part 2 and understand, because on our next class, we're going to discuss deeply on these types of utility using calculations and tables, especially those who are writing WAEC and JAMB. This topic are always in your JAMB or WAEC questions. So we're going to deeply explain this for easy understanding. Right? Now, the next question will be, why consumers must choose? Why is it that consumers must choose? You and I, we must choose when it comes to utility. Now, students, the reason why you must choose when it comes to utilities because wants are unlimited, meaning that we want so many things even when we can achieve them, right? But the money is limited, and in some texts we'll say the money is scarce, resources is scarce, while wants are unlimited. And this is the major reason why we study economics, because economics view the world through the lens of scarcity, right? Because resources are limited while our wants are unlimited. So when it comes to utility, we must choose because wants are unlimited and our money is limited. And remember, just like I said, economists view the world through the lens of scarcity. And it is because of this scarcity we must make choice. And because of the choice we make, we must draw a scale of preference. These are the concepts of economics. Right? So you may want many things like food, clothes, shoes, data, transport, name it. But your money cannot buy everything. So you must choose. Now, how do you choose? You choose the options that give you the highest satisfaction. That is how you choose. The option that gives you the highest satisfaction. For example, you have 2,000 naira. Right? We have an example on my screen. You have 2,000 naira. Now, you need food, and the food will cost you 1,000. You need transportation, which will cost you 1,000, and data, which will cost you 1,000. If you total the food, the data, the transport, the total of it is 3,000 naira, but you have 2,000 naira. So one thing must go in order for you to achieve this. So you have to choose. You have to decide based on what is most important to you at that time. And that decision is consumer behavior. Okay? That decision is what we call the consumer behavior. So today we have learned that consumer behavior is how people make choices And utility is the satisfaction from consumption. And consumers aim to get the highest satisfaction with limited money or resources. Now that we have done justice to the foundation of consumer behavior, in our next class, which is the part 2 of consumer behavior, we're going to go deeper. We're going to use tables, step-by-step explanation, and real-life example to fully understand total utility and marginal utility. So make sure you stay tuned for part 2. And if this lesson was helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to Dpenomics Academy. Comment next on the comment section if you are ready for part 2. And thank you for watching. Stay blessed.